Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is kiodiekin. Today's video, I felt it would be a really good time to kind of step back and do a refresher course on for some of the new people out there new to Raspberry Pi. This video will also apply to Recalbox and Batocera, but I want to show you all how to install your ROMs, media, and other artwork to your Raspberry Pi device. We're also going to take a look at Supreme Ultra, which is what we will be using in this video today for a demonstration, what emulators are included, how it benefits you, and how you can further enjoy your gameplay on Retropie Supreme Ultra. You know what time it is? Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so before I show you guys how to add some ROMs, we're going to take a look at Supreme Ultra for the Raspberry Pi 5. Now, even though I'm using this as a demonstration, this will apply to pretty much any Recalbox. Some of this will apply to Recalbox, Batocera, and this should work for any Retropie image, whether you have a Raspberry Pi 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up to whatever else they decide to release. First thing we want to do is we want to go into our options. We're going to take a look at first and foremost how to obtain your IP address. Now, there are three different ways on how you can obtain your IP address for your Retropie or Raspberry Pi device. The first way is we're going to go to Retropie Tools, and we have a script in here called Show IP. So once you click on this, this is one of the easier ways to show your IP address. And the default IP address for my Retropie image today is 192.168.1.145. So make sure you guys take a screenshot of that, not mine because this pertains to me, but if you're setting it up, take a screenshot of it, write it down, because you will need to know this number when we go into our other program. In fact, I'll just go ahead and show you guys a quick screenshot. This is where you'll need to enter in your IP address in a program called WinSCP, but we'll come back to that in just a quick moment. All right, so we're going to back out of this. Now, the other way to obtain your IP address, for those of you who may be familiar with your home networking, is you could go on your home network, look at what devices are connected, and then you can obtain your IP address that way. So that one's a little bit more tedious, but you can obtain your IP address that way. All right, so we're going to back out here, and we want to make sure that we go to Retropie Setup. We want to take a look at all of the ROMs. I'm sorry, not ROMs, but emulators that are included. And so to make things easier, we're going to go down here to Manage Packages. And there are some other options in here. In fact, we have our configuration tools and some of the other things. We're not really going to touch on some of these today. But USB ROM service by default is enabled, as well as Samba Share. Now, if this was a vanilla basic Retropie image, both of those typically wouldn't be installed for you, but we've already gone ahead and enabled it for you. So if you guys have ever seen these enabled, even if you have a basic Retropie image installed, then it's not really it is a pre-made image, because there's been a lot of work even worked on that. All right, so we'll take a look at our managed packages. And in this section, you do have them individualized. We're going to scroll down here to manage all packages. That way we don't have to go in and out of each category to see what is installed on each one. We're going to hit A. And for the purpose of this video, you could use either a regular keyboard, or in my case right now, I'm using my Xbox Elite controller, and pretty much any type of controller will work for your gaming setup here. All right, so first and foremost, if you see any emulator here or program marked in red, that means it can't be compiled. And I can't stress this enough, because a lot of times we'll see reviews where people are operating or trying to use emulation from desktop, and you have no idea if you're going to get a gaming front end like Retropie, Batocera, or Recalbox, and you don't even know if the emulators will be compiled. Now, typically, you don't need to use some of these emulators. Advanced MAME in 1.4 and 0.94 have been discontinued. They were primarily used on, let's say, your Retropie, Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and a Raspberry Pi 4. I do know that there was an update that removed all those, and I've kind of spoken on those in previous videos. But these are the current list of emulators that are installed on Raspberry Pi Retropie Supreme Ultra. This one's installed. This is Advanced MAME. The ones here in black that don't say installed can be installed if you want to, but we don't need these. This is my personal image that I am working on. We don't need to add any of those, but those are added. The Raspberry Pi Supreme Ultra by default, I don't think has Atari i800 installed. It doesn't have Daphne installed either. However, I did go ahead and install that myself. So for those of you interested in adding Daphne, you can go in here and install it. We're going to click on it, and if it wasn't installed, it would just say install. Right now it says reinstall because I've already gone ahead and done it. So let's go ahead and click on something else. And it's this one is Basilisk. I'm not sure which one ROMs are supported by this, but this particular emulator has not been installed, but we're going to go ahead and hit back. I don't need it. So again, all the ones in red are the ones that can't be compiled. The ones in black can be compiled, and if they are, it will already say installed. We got DOSBox. Got some other ones here. Hephaestus is an add-on for Daphne Singe. I installed that. I know for a fact Retropie Supreme Ultra doesn't have that installed. This one here, MAME for All, is an arcade emulator as well as MAME. This one was primarily used on the 3B Plus and 3 and 3B and also the 4. However, we don't need it anymore. Actually, no, that one wasn't on the 4. We don't need it anymore. Again, all these emulators in here control the overall function of your games. And someone asked me earlier today, they're like, Keo, I only see 4 ROMs or 4 emulators installed. And I was like, no, they're all there, but you have to install your ROMs in order to take advantage of these particular systems. But again, all of these emulators that you're looking at are the emulators that will run your ROMs. If you just download a specific base, these emulators won't function, or you can't use them until you install games on them. Again, all these here in red cannot be compiled unless in the future date there's some workaround for it, but currently they can't be compiled. PPP SSPP isn't installed on here. I could probably install that at a later date. Redream, Sega Saturn emulator is installed, as well as Recast is available. I don't recommend that one. Redream kind of takes care of everything. Again, we have some other emulators that can't be compiled, and then we have another list of emulators that aren't installed at all. We got Sega Model 3, that's on here. This is a Sega Dreamcast emulator. I'm sorry, Sega Saturn emulator, Yaba Sanshiro. I don't have that one installed, don't need it. Works pretty good without it. And then here you'll see a cluster of other Retropie emulators currently installed. But again, for the most part, all the emulators that you need to use are currently installed right now on Supreme Ultra, as well as other images. If you see a list like this that says installed, that means it's already done for you. Again, we don't need to install DOSBox unless you want to. And all of these will take up additional hard drive space or storage space on your SSD or your SD card. Flycast, that's been installed for you as well. Supreme Ultra typically supports roughly about 230 different emulators in different scenarios. I don't know the specific number, but it is one of the most robust front ends or images or base builds for your Raspberry Pi. Down here we have all the arcade emulators installed. I think there were a couple of these that I needed to compile myself. We got MAME 2000, 2003, 10, 2015, 2016. So all of these here will run a robust number of arcade for your arcade set. Roughly right now I have about 3,200 arcade games on my personal image. We have MAME. If you install this one, you really don't need it to use it, but it would take probably a day and a half to fully compile it. So I would suggest maybe starting late at night or something when you're not even using it. We have MESS. And down here at the bottom left, I don't know if you guys can really see it. That gives you, I know my logo's kind of over it. I'll move it up for a second. This tells you what system these emulators are for. So if you're just like, man, what emulator does this work for? What ROMs will it support? It tells you down there at the bottom left. So that's just pretty much good to know. All right, we also have Opera on here. This is a 3DO emulator. We have Parallel, that's for N64, PCSX, Rearm, Pico Drive, PSSPP. We got that LibreCore down here installed as well. And we're just going to scroll down. We also have our SNES emulators. We have a lot of other emulators as well that you can add if you want to. And we got Virtual Jaguar as well. And then we also have a selection here of Retropie ports. Some of these are just basic games. Typically, you would find like your E-Duke, which would be your Duke Nukem's, your Dooms, and other games that are you could also add in here that will go into your ports, as well as Kodi. Now, Kodi's already installed. I believe that's installed a different way. And as you can see here, we have some additional ports and other links here that are not compilable on this particular build. So this is just a good look at what you could expect on your Retropie image. Kind of closing this out here, we have Retropie selection here. These are supplementary. Now, we don't have a track mode currently working. You also have a HD for you. This is set up your additional third-party PlayStation 3 controllers. And for the most part, you guys could have downloaded some of the older builds in the past where you're not able to add drivers for, let's say, your arcade sticks and whatnot, but the Supreme team has already added it in here for you. We also have, let's see, an emulation station. Obviously, that's installed because that's what you're using to log in here. Then we have Pegasus. We've had that on the Pi 4. But again, we have some things in here that we can't currently install. And we also have our PS3 controller. Scraper is not added. And then this is splash screen if you want to install videos when you initially launch a Retropie image. That's the script that allows you to use it. And then kind of closing this out again down here at the bottom. This set down here is for your controller driver. So right now I'm using an Xbox Elite controller. So this is already active for your drivers. Now, if this was a basic vanilla copy of Retropie, you would not have any of this installed or enabled. You would have to use a keyboard and set it up manually. Arcade 2 joystick. This I know some of you have had those Micro Center arcade sticks and some of those other fight sticks that are out there. This is the script that you would need to enable in order to use some of those arcade fight sticks. Now, that typically hasn't been a problem in the past. A lot of those now have all been universal, whether you're using PlayStation 3 or an Xbox driver, so you should be fine with any one of those. And in some cases, you would need to delete or unactivate either the Xbox driver or the PS3 driver to use either one of those. I know people have reported in the past that the PlayStation 3 driver doesn't work if the Xbox driver is enabled. Last but not least, we have our send-in light gun script. This has been heavily improved upon. You can set up your light gun in here. You will need to configure all your shaders and all of your borders, but the send-in light gun is capable to use on this version of Retropie. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at our ROM library. I know that doesn't really have to take a look at how to add ROMs, but that's very important to know because somebody asked me, they like, hey, where's all my ROMs and how many emulators are actually installed. So we're going to bounce over now to our desktop. And this allows us to access in directly to our Retropie device. A lot of files that you see here today, you won't be able to see unless you log in using via SSH. So before we get started, the first program you will need to download is something called WinSCP. It doesn't matter which version you use. This is typically what all the image makers and builders use to add specific files on the back end. And typically if you're using something like this, you are an image maker or dev end. This isn't something where a lot of novice users really use, but however, it can be used with a number of different work scenarios. It's not specifically used for Retropie, so it is a good thing to pretty much have on your computer at all times. All right, you're going to download this, install it to your computer. It's really simple, straightforward. You just go to winscp.net, install it, and you're pretty much done and good to go. Once you get the program installed, we're going to take that IP address that we just pulled up from our Raspberry Pi, and we're going to type it in here. This is 192.168.1.145. Obviously, yours is going to be different on your local network. Then we're going to type in Pi for the username. And with Supreme Ultra, we're going to type in Supreme Team. Or if this was a defaulted version, you would either type in Retropie, Raspberry Pi, I think with Batocera, what is it? It's I think it's Batocera Linux. I forget the actual name or password off the top. It's usually like Linux and then Batocera or something of that nature. But each one may have their own specific name. Now, if you're wondering why we changed it on here, a few years ago, some people used to drive around neighborhoods to see if they could hack into your home network system using if you had a Raspberry Pi, Retropie device, because they were all default. Username would be Pi, password would be Retropie or Raspberry Pi or whatever, and they would use that because pretty much, again, everybody had the same username and password. So we decided to mix it up a little bit, so that's why the name has been changed, or the password has been changed, so you can SSH in. So once you have your file protocol listed as SFTP, type in your host name, you type in your IP address, Pi, and then this, of course, is going to be Supreme Team or whatever the password is for your particular build or image. We're going to log in. It's going to give us all the verifications. And as you can see, we are logged in now to Supreme Gaming for Retropie on the Raspberry Pi 5. And again, this applies to any Retropie image that is currently out there. This particular screen lets you currently know what my CPU temperature is. We also have the IP address listed here again. We also have how much memory is free. And we have our file storage space. I'm using a 500 gigabyte SSD drive. Actual size is 459, and currently I'm using 427 with 30 gigs available. And typically this temperature down here isn't the defaulted. Typically for most people it would be 55. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close that out. Not too important. And this is the menu where we're going to add our ROMs to. So over here on the left, this is my external drive. This will be my personal hard drive, my personal computer. Over here on the right, this is your Raspberry Pi that we're logged into. You're going to be able to see all the hidden files, all of the hidden extensions that are available on your Raspberry Pi device through Retropie. But again, typically you won't see this from that front end interface. We're going to click on Retropie. And we're going to click on ROMs. Now you have a couple of different ways on how you want to do this. Number one, I could select all of the systems I want to add in each folder in here just so you guys can see what's in here. This contains all of my media, artwork, my video snaps, and everything is just listed. And it has my ROMs here. So we're going to go back. So if I wanted to, I could just click on this, which will pretty much cover all the systems that I want to add. I have pretty much a extensive list of Retropie emulator setup here, or set up our emulators. And so we're going to click and drag. And if I want to just click and drag and add these to ROMs, I would just go ahead and do so, and it would start copying over everything. Typically, you have your splash screen videos. This is where you would put your splash screen videos. This one isn't a splash screen. However, this is your defaulted image here, which will show up, which will say Supreme Retro Gaming for the Pi 5. And of course, this could also take videos too, but I don't believe that is currently enabled. But it would be enabled on, let's say, your Pi 3, your Pi 4 Retropie build. All right, so here's a list of all the directories. Now, even though, let's go ahead and quick back. We want to take a look at our Raspberry Pi image because primarily this was one of the concerns that was brought up to me. Like, hey, I only see 4 emulators. You're looking at all the folders. These are all the folders and directories, and they're going to be present whether they have ROMs in them or not. Now, if they don't have ROMs in them or some type of media artwork, it's not going to show up on Emulation Station. So down here in the bottom, we have WonderSwan Color. That is a system that is currently installed, and I do have ROMs for that. But as again, let's go ahead and switch back to our Retropie device. We'll click through all the systems, and as you can see, WonderSwan Color is not going to pop up because there are no ROMs in here. But what we're going to do here, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to transfer over one ROM. So let's take a look at our menu again. This is the WonderSwan Color file library. We'll go ahead and just add one ROM in there. And as you can see, we're going to bounce back now over to our capture device. And you can see it's still not there. So what you want to do, and this is typically something you want to do after you transfer your ROMs over, either you can restart the system or you could just restart Emulation Station. Now, once we restart Emulation Station, that particular system will pop up. And we'll go ahead and find it. Everything in here should be alphabetically. And you can see now, look, magically we have one game in here. We'll go ahead and click on it. Let's go ahead. Now, I don't have any media or artwork, but that's typically where you would see your box art or video snap playing over there on your right. So let's go ahead and start it. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to hit A, B on my controller consistently during this video loading screen. And as you can see, again, this emulator has already been established to work with this particular game. So as you can see here, we're going to select the default emulator, and there's only one emulator for this system. It was already pre-installed for you, but again, you're not going to know this until you have ROM specifically in that folder that allows you to take full advantage of it so you can start your games. Now, if I wanted to continue to launch this game, I would just hit launch. But I'm just going to exit out for the purpose of this video. You typically don't have to do any of this at all. I'm just doing this for the sake of this video. But this is how you know that this ROM is fully compatible. There are additional emulators installed already on your base build. So let's go ahead and exit out. Now I'm going to show you the other way. So there's typically 2 or 3 different ways on how you can add ROMs directly to your Retropie device. There is another way where you can take an external drive and transfer it over directly on your Raspberry Pi using the file manager system. In fact, I'll back out here where you guys can see it. I typically don't prefer that process because it is a little bit more tedious. But there is a different way here. If we go to file manager, you can hook up another device, manually transfer ROMs over that way, but we're not going to get into any of that today. All right, so coming back here to the main screen, we're going to go look at our file library. So this is WinSCP. So this is one specific way of transferring your ROMs over. And as you can see, these are all the listed directories. And let's go ahead and delete this because we don't need it. Take that off our build. This has all of my media work, artwork. We have about 3,200 games here for our arcade system, as well as our CHD files, which are listed here in these folders. All right, now the other way that we could go ahead and transfer ROMs over is we're going to take a look at our home networking section. I'm going to go over here and look at our left monitor. And you're going to hit / and type in the IP address of your Raspberry Pi device. So we've already done that. Let's just go ahead and click on it. And once we do that, you can now see the additional directories that are very similar to WinSCP. Now, this is Windows Explorer. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with this. This allows you to look at your home network and everything else that you have here. However, if you type in your IP address, but using / 192.168, and then of course whatever the rest of your digits are, this allows you to go in and transfer your ROMs the same way as you would using WinSCP. The biggest difference is WinSCP is a little better because it will show you your additional hidden files, and typically you could do that here, but this is a much more easier method if you don't want to go through that additional install method to transfer your ROMs over. The splash screen folder is where you would transfer over all of your videos that will play at the beginning of your Retropie image. We have our configs here. This allows you to transfer over all your configs, and we also have our BIOS folder. So if you need to install a BIOS, if you don't already have it, most of the Supreme base builds will have a BIOS already included, or if you get a ready-made image, most of the BIOSes have already been included for you as well. Now, the third way to add ROMs over is pretty much using WinSCP, or I'm sorry, not WinSCP, but Windows Explorer as well. So we're going to go ahead and hit down, and we're going to hit / Retropie. Now, sometimes I don't like this method because sometimes it doesn't work. So we're going to hit / type in Retropie. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I know back in the day, there used to be an issue with it, whereas it would appear or sometimes it wouldn't. I think that was like a Windows 10 error, but however, occasionally it does work. But again, guys, all in all, that is the simplest way of how to transfer all of your ROMs over to your Raspberry Pi device. I know this tutorial was a little lengthy, but this is one of the basic, well-known things that you need to have to help get you started. It's always good to kind of come back for a refresher. We always have people who are new to the hobby community, and I don't think I particularly covered this topic before because I figured, oh shoot, there's like hundreds of videos on this. But it was always good to make something like this specifically here for the channel, and we thank you guys for all the love and support that is out there. You guys can see here, everything is perfectly scraped. You got your box art, everything added. Not every image is going to have it, and then of course you can add whatever you want to as well. But it's always good to have this refresher course. You have your controller tools, your emulation tools, Retropie tools. But again, that is the simplest way of how to add in your ROMs to your base build. Or if you even want to add additional ROMs to an already established image and have something to work on yourself. But make sure you guys like and subscribe. We appreciate all the love. I will catch you guys later. Hit the notification bell. It really helps us out here on the channel. And I will catch you guys later. Peace out and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.